name is Roxy Deer, and I am the president of Hype Richmond. For those of you unfamiliar with Hype Richmond, it stands for Helping Young Professionals Engage, and we serve the audience 21 to 40 here in Wayne County. To learn more about Hype Richmond, you can visit our website, hyperichmondin.org, or you can check out our table as you leave this evening. Welcome to the first ever Young Professionals Mayoral Debate. We appreciate that you're here, and we are excited for tonight's events. Tonight we are going to introduce three candidates, and I'm going to ask them to come out as I say their name alphabetically. From the Republican Party, we have Jamie Lopeman. Our independent party candidate this evening is Thomas Owens. And the Democrat Party candidate, Dave Snow. Before we begin tonight's interviews, I do want to recognize our sponsor, Richmond Community Schools, for donating the space and making tonight possible. Can we give them a round of applause? I also want to recognize the Hype members that are in the audience. I know they're sitting back in the back because they're all going to be live tweeting as we go throughout tonight, but can you please stand? At this time, I'm going to hand the mic over to Mark Broker, the Professional Development Chair from Hype Richmond.
Again, good evening and welcome, and thank you so much for coming. This was a brainchild of mine, I would say, in a way to get engagement within this community. Not only young professionals, but also adults, first-time voters. That's why we have registration out in the audience. As a Hype Richmond, we believe that if everybody is engaged, this community is only going to do one thing, get better. And that's something that we strive for. Moving forward here, I'm also going to explain the rules and the agenda for the debate tonight. So you'll hear each candidate will have an opportunity of 3 minutes for a candidate introduction that they can use as they wish there for the 3 minutes. After that, we'll move to questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer their question. And then we have 5 topics tonight in which we will say when we are moving from one topic to another. First topic will be budget, then we'll move to economic and business development, education, workforce development, housing, and transportation. Towards the end of the evening, we're going to see what questions came in if time permits, anything that's came through on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any social media following whatsoever. We'll see if there's any time we can get some questions involved in that way as well. Again, thank you for this evening, and then we randomly drew for the who goes first, and first will be Thomas Owens.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. It's nice to see so many from the community interested in our election process. So local government wasn't designed to be complicated. It's a voice for the people who choose to live in our community. I'm running for mayor because I heard a call for a change, and I want the citizens to have another option. I don't doubt the love for the city from our other candidates, but I think we need a leader who can bring us all back together to move forward. My concern is our citizens and our future together. The mayor needs to be an expert at listening and sharing those thoughts. We have so many board and committees full of experts that study the issues. We have employees with years of experience in the fields, and we have citizens and business owners and investors who should have input in what we do. If all voices are heard, there will be no failures. If elected, my one campaign promise is monthly discussion groups. This will allow anybody to participate in conversation about our city. My hope is to inform anyone on our current status, upcoming events, council issues, and anything else that may be of interest. This will also be a time for questions and concerns to be brought up without asking to be placed on an agenda. If anything can't be answered immediately, those questions will be answered at the next monthly meeting. By doing this, our community will be informed and have a voice in what we do. With a declining population and tax base, I think it's important for people to understand our situation and be a part of living within our budget. I'm no means an expert in city government, but I have the gift of conversation, understanding, and negotiation. I'm the only candidate for mayor up here that's not been directly involved in our government for the past 4 years, and as an independent candidate, the only one here without party support. I'm not running because I have the answer or some grand plan. I'm running so I can be your voice, for our plan. Thank you.
Next will be Dave.
Thank you.
Dave's next.
Well, first and foremost, thank you to HYPE for all the work that went into this wonderful debate. And thank you to all of you in attendance and watching at home tonight for staying informed and engaged throughout this very important election. You are playing a vital role in our city's future by staying informed and going to the polls ready to vote with confidence. Richmond is a city on the rise. This beautiful and historic city is at a turning point, a critical turning point, and its amazing people are engaging in and writing its next chapter. I have lived and worked in Richmond my entire life, and more so, I've devoted my entire adult career to serving this community. I spent every moment of my spare time building community events that are still thriving today. It meant the world to me to do what I could to bring the city together and build a stronger sense of place and community. That passion for Richmond and its people was at the heart of motivating me to run for mayor back in 2015, and it's still what motivates me today. When I think back to that 2015 campaign, walking the campaign trail through the neighborhoods, on the front porches and in the front yards of people all across the city, I remember those conversations so well. We talked about the excitement that we shared, that it was Richmond's time to take the spotlight in Indiana and to really go into a growth phase. And as we talked about that excitement, we talked about the hurdles that we saw in our way. We talked about the condition of our roads. We talked about our public safety, the drug problem that's hurt so many families in our community. We talked about our economy. We talked about that terrible hospital and how in the world we were going to tear it down and how we were going to move that forward. Tonight, we're here to talk about those hurdles that are still in front of us, the ones on which we've made substantial progress, and the hurdles that are still in our way today. When we talk about the hurdles that are still in our way today, there's a very important takeaway. As I travel around the state, the country, and even abroad, I meet with government leaders and business leaders, and it becomes very clear that the issues that we face as a community aren't exclusive at all to Richmond. They by no means define us or set us apart. The issues that we face are pervasive throughout so many other communities. What does set Richmond apart is our engagement, our solidarity, our resilience, and our never-ending passion for our hometown. That's the secret ingredient that pushes Richmond forward every single day. Today, we have ended a 10-year drought on raises for our very hardworking employees. We've given incremental raises each year that I've been mayor. Our police department is finally back to a full force after a decade of understaffing, which is having a remarkably positive impact on our city in more arrests, more drugs off the streets, and more involvement with our youth. We're seeing millions of dollars in new and expansion projects in our economy. We have 2 newly designated opportunity zones, making Richmond a very attractive city for investment dollars. Our neighborhoods are growing stronger, and through teamwork, collaboration, and sheer determination, that old hospital is gone today. And we have an undeveloped green parcel of land waiting for its next chapter to be written. And you're engaging with that chapter because we've wrapped it into our 10-year master plan, of which you've been very active. All of this together is making Richmond a very viable option for young people as they consider their future. And that's our future. So I ask you tonight and challenge you to not only look at what challenges lie immediately in front of us, but think about where our continued partnership and collaboration will take us as we move forward together. Thank you.
Next, Jamie.
First of all, thanks to HYPE and thanks for Richmond Community Schools for arranging this event. My name is Jamie Lopeman, and 4 years ago, I received a phone call, and that phone call said, "Would you consider running for mayor?" And I said at that time, absolutely not. I'm not ready to do that. I can't say that I know what it takes to be a mayor, and thank you for your interest, but I'm not interested. Before I could hang up that phone, the person said to me, "Would you consider city council?" So I went to my wife and my kids, and I had a long conversation, and then I went to my employer, and I said, "This is what I'm going to do. Will you support that?" He said, "Absolutely. I think it's fantastic that you want to be involved and engaged with your community. 4 years on council, I have been a steward of your finances. I've overseen budget issues, dealt with the situations that come up on a daily, yearly basis. And quite frankly, watching that, I see inefficiencies. I see areas that we can improve. I see where wants are considered over needs, and projects don't go back to public safety and essential services. So, what happened next? I decided to run for mayor. I decided that I needed to step up for our community and to try to move us in the right direction. So once again, I sat at the table with my wife and kids, and we had the same conversation. And they said, absolutely. And I made a sacrifice. I quit my job. I quit my job to come to run to better our city. I'm Jamie Lopeman, and I'm your Republican candidate for mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. We're going to start with our debate questions. Each candidate will get 90 seconds to answer the same question. The first question, we'll start with Thomas Owens. What is the most important challenge facing Richmond, and how do you propose we address it?
I think the most important challenge we're looking at is bringing people back to Richmond and filling some of the vacant housing we have. That's part of the tax base shortage, and by doing that, we'll have the taxes, we'll have the people here, and that'll certainly build business. There's no magic key to doing that, though. Thank you.
Dave?
So if I'm talking about the most important challenges facing Richmond right now, that's a multifold answer. I would say first and foremost, building a community that invigorates its citizens to have hope and aspiration, because that is what gets us to believe in our city and what drives everyone to want more and to ask for more, and to make a city where people want to choose and seek out to live. That's important. Mr. Owen spoke about home ownership. That is key to driving a successful city, and there are roles that we are actively playing now to invigorate home ownership, and I think we're going to talk more about that a little bit later. So if I had to really nutshell that, it's building that community that provides hope, aspiration, and leads to longevity.
Dave's absolutely right. There are multi-issues facing our city, but the one that jumps out to me the most is generational poverty. Generational poverty affects every aspect of our community. It brings in drugs, low rate, illiteracy levels are low, and that's where we need to start. If we start by concentrating on the poverty levels in Richmond and we work to improve literacy levels, we will see a change.
Thank you.
And on the topic of the budget, if elected, moving to Mayor Snow, if elected, what is the first step you would take to help secure our city's financial footing?
I would say that is an ongoing process. So when we're talking about the city's budget, we work for you. So your tax dollars come in for us to allocate to serve you, the citizens. And we have done that judiciously every year that I've been mayor. I talked about ending the 10-year drought on raises for our employees. We've done that while improving city services, while improving our city parks, while bringing our police department back to full force and adding to the bottom line. And so we have been very judicious with those dollars, and that is what we will continue to do moving forward as mayor with the city budget.
Jamie?
Once again, I touched base on it in the beginning. It's needs over wants. Public safety, essential services, and in a place of quality will always be your top three requirements. It's no secret we have an unbalanced budget again this year. I will throw out some numbers to you. In 2017, on a WCTV event, our current mayor said that, hey, we wanted to have 15% cash reserves. In the budget hearing the other night, he said his target number was 10%. We're going to be below 10% this year. What we're lacking council input. I personally would like to give more of a role back to council preemptively. I want them to understand where we're going to spend our money. I want them to understand and get their input so that we can move forward as a city.
So I would say that watching our spending would be one of the key ways to do that. I had read an article at some point in time where we had spent $180,000 roughly on equipment for our golf course, and one of the employees was talking about it had been since 2008 since we had made that same kind of purchase,
Sure.
and that it generally cost about $2,000 a year to maintain that equipment. Well, we're looking at 11 years there, $2,000 a year versus $180,000. It seems to me like maintaining that equipment would be the way to go. in some cases. So I think watching our spending and just repairing when we can repair.
The next question. In the past, the county has been presented with the opportunity to pass the food and beverage tax. In recent conversations, it's been discussed that Richmond should look into the food and beverage tax. What are your thoughts on the city passing this tax? Start with Jamie.
Thank you. So I have not seen a comprehensive plan or a detailed plan on what we're going to do with a food and beverage tax. I was at the Chamber of Commerce the other day, and they asked me, have you seen this plan? I said, absolutely not. So for me to say I'm in favor of or against, I can't say at this time. But what I will tell you is this. I would like community input, number one. I would also like to understand the ramifications on our citizens. There are some citizens, like we just talked about, that are on poverty levels. How will we impact them? Then we also need a check and a balance on how this money is to be allocated. I kind of throw this back to edit money. You've seen over the years how that's changed. The focus needs to be maintained throughout the process.
Thanks. Thomas?
So to Jamie's point, without further information, I certainly wouldn't give my opinion on it, but something that's important is a food and beverage tax, and we're looking to tax our community. It would be my opinion that that would be something that we would find a way to put it on the ballot and let people vote for that and not let our elected officials make that decision for us.
Mayor Snow?
The food and beverage tax is one of the many tools that's been provided to us by the state legislature to consider alternate revenue sources for our bottom line for our city so that we can add that to the services that we provide to the citizens. It was previously introduced to the county council, and then the project was not seen as a robust plan to give calls for that tax. Ultimately, passing of that tax would not be a decision of the mayor or the executive branch of government. Ultimately, it would be a decision of the legislative branch of government for council to hear and then make the decision if they would like to pass that as an ordinance, as a new tax. So for myself, would I be in favor of it? I would have to see a robust plan, and I would have to take a lot of consultation with council, and then ultimately their decision to pass that forward.
Moving to an important topic here, economic and business development. I have a question here from an Ivy Tech student that submitted. Thomas, you'll be going first here. What will you do to attract new business to our area and increase economic vitality?
Okay, so to my point in my opening statement, we have professionals that do nothing but that. That's their area of expertise. So what I would do is I would listen to them and then listen to the community as far as what they're looking at doing and move forward from there.
Mayor Snow?
When we look at business attraction, it is only one piece of the ultimate puzzle in success for our local economy. So when we talk about business attraction, it must be looped in with business retention, workforce development, and as the city, we are partners financially with the county and with our EDC. We have a very effective EDC and leaders in that department right now. So when we look at business attraction, we have to start with making proper investments in our industrial park so that we have new land that can be developed, or having current buildings that can be redeveloped. We also have to maintain the relationships with the business owners, which is being done through Find a Job Fridays and grants that are available through the EDC for growth. But then also our trips to Japan are very important as well. We have 5 Japanese-owned companies in Richmond, and we make a trip every 2 years to thank them for their investment and to seek out new investment. This is a very multi-tiered pipeline of growing our local economy, and I can tell you that at this moment, it's successful. In the years 27 and 2018 combined, we saw $27 million in new and expansion projects. Our teamwork, our partnership, and the work that we're doing is very effective right now in our local economy, and that's the work we'll continue to do over the next 4 years.
My opponent just highlighted some great numbers there. Those are also pretty common with national and state levels as well. We're just keeping up. The question is, how do we get ahead? So obviously the EDC is in place. It's their job to go out and help us find new business. As a mayor, it's my job to work with officials to break down any barriers that are out there. We must focus on industrial recruitment. We must also focus on business retention and expansion. We must also focus on tourism, small businesses, and retiree attraction. That's right, retiree attraction. We have a cost of living here that is very low. So as your mayor, I will work as a collaborative with all entities to ensure that our city is given every opportunity to obtain those opportunities. Partnerships are going to be the key to this, and we will move forward.
Mayor Snow, this question will start with you. The community has seen numerous businesses leave the downtown area or close up shop on Main Street. How do you plan to rebuild the downtown district?
Our downtown is the heart of our city and must always have a spotlight and attention to make it the most vital part of our city. It's such an important historical and vibrant piece of our community. The closures that we've seen throughout downtown were incoming. So it's fortunate that we have the projects in place right now and that revitalization is happening. Phase 1 of that revitalization is coming to a close and phase 2 is right around the corner. The closures that we've seen, when we look at Elder Bierman, Chase, and those other closures, we knew for quite a while that those were imminent. And now we're looking at an imminent closure on our west side. The disruption of our retail market is happening all across the country due to the birth and the growth of online and digital revenue and sales. So we have to continue to imply these projects onto our downtown to continue to make them vital and travelable and walkable and make it a destination so that it's an economically viable part of our city.
There were inevitable closures coming, that's for sure. But government also affected businesses downtown. We put in infrastructure that hurt business. We had, I think it's 6 small businesses leave the downtown area based on lack of parking, construction, and so on and so forth. We've even impacted a business today structurally. Their basement's leaking, there's water coming in, and we haven't repaired it yet as a city. What do? Well, I'm prepared to work with downtown business owners in the following way. I want to use redevelopment money and small and low interest loans to improve facades. We will make our city shine, and then what we will do is we will go to the professionals. We will go to the realtors of this town, and we will use their expertise to promote downtown so that we can rebuild it.
So downtown's been an ongoing problem since as long as I can remember. There's always been vacant stores. It seems to have progressively gotten worse. At this point, I think key to success downtown would be hoping that the Redevelopment Commission and the EDC can find a good use for the Elder Bierman building, and hopefully that can push business back in that way.
This be for you. How do you plan to continue engaging our citizens in the city's decision-making process once elected?
Fantastic question. It starts at the lowest level of communication. I can tell you from my past, I've had 650 indirect reports, I've had 10 direct reports, and I had an open door policy. I had people that would come in and talk about their dogs when we're trying to run a multi-million-dollar operation. The key is that you have to be accessible, and you have to take this communication to the simplest level. If you're asked a question or somebody asks to see you, you have to be available. That's the job. You have to be able to give them a response or tell them when a response is going to happen. That's a lapse that I've heard throughout my campaign. In fact, it's the number one thing I've heard. Communication is a problem in the city. I'm here to help.
Thomas.
So communication is the top topic on my campaign and on my platform. So one of my single goals that I've highlighted as far as a promise is to do the monthly discussion groups where people are welcome to come in and discuss and talk and try to solve problems that way. So that it'll be an open group every single month, and I think by doing that, the communication line will be fixed.
Snow.
There are a couple of keys to communication and engagement. One of them is accountability. You need to make sure that the data that you're being told by your local officials is correct data. That is very important. Elected officials must be accountable to the promises and the data that they're sharing. So make sure that when you're being given that data and you're being given those facts and being made those promises, that you're following up on what all of that means, because accountability is key to engagement and communication, because in communication there must be trust. As mayor, we have worked very, very hard and made tremendous investments in improving our communication. We have a community development coordinator that is on staff attending several meetings around the city and delivering that information back to us. We have improved our social media. We have started a brand new website that has much more information. We issue more press releases. And so we have our council meetings, which always have public comment, and we hold an abundance of public input meetings on all of the projects that are underway. There is a vast array of opportunity for the community to engage in everything we are doing and have their say. But I would really stress that accountability piece and make sure that the information that you're hearing is accurate.
There is a large property on the north side of Richmond, formerly Reed Hospital. What are your plans for this property, or what would you like to see go into this location?
Is that me? So the old Reed site, more than anything, I'd like to see an outside investor take interest in that property and come to the city with a plan. You have the Redevelopment Commission and the EDC that works on all that kind of stuff, and hopefully they'll reach out to other people too. But ideally, you'll get somebody from outside that sees that and they see a use, and they come in after it.
One of the key components to the development of that site is your input. So we have made the future land use of that site part of our 10-year master planning process. We have been at farmers market, festivals, we've had events at City Hall. We have a website right now where you can go and put that input at richmondrising.com. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure that we're using it to its best use, but also to the best use of the community, not just where it sits. So the future use of that site is exciting, and we are thrilled to have your input as we look at the best ways that an investor or a developer can come along and develop that to the best use for us.
Obviously, this is a city-wide project, and it needs input, just like Dave said. The reality is that we don't know what we can do with that right now because there is contamination on that site. We're waiting for studies that will allow us to understand what it is that we can do. Can we have living there, or is it going to be retail only? We don't know that, but I assure you this, once we find out what it is we can do, I want your input. I don't want to make a decision from top down for our future. I want you engaged, and I want you to tell me what you want and to determine a place of quality.
Sticking with economic and business development, this question we heard from local businesses, young professionals included. The City of Richmond over the past several decades has seen a population that is slowly declining. What is your plan to address this as employers need qualified candidates? Would you consider a tuition reimbursement program or some other type of program that would boost employment of professional people and get them to move to our city?
I think that would be a toughie. I'm sorry. I'm right at me. Yeah.
It's okay. It's all right. Making an attractive city that is a livable option for those in the digital era is essential to our success. In today's economy, there are so many young people that take their career with them on their laptop. We have to give them a city that's welcoming and inviting so that they'll want to bring their laptop or their computer here, live here, and work on their terms. That is today's economy. Workforce development is a whole other issue that I'm not going to try to squeeze into this time frame because I think we're going to get into it later. That's another key piece for those that are here and want to skill up in today's workforce. But growing our population must come from building a livable, walkable, thriving community.
I don't think I could answer it any better. That'd be mine.
It was my turn.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were going in order.
So look, it's one,
we got to get some J cards.
So I have worked most of my adult life outside of the city of Richmond, as has my wife. Our careers have taken us elsewhere, but we have determined to call Richmond our home. We want to raise our children here. We enjoy their time in Richmond Community Schools. We think they're making great student athletes out of them. But why did we choose Richmond? That's the real question. How many people in this room actually go to the kids and say, what is your hope for our city? That's our future. If you want them to stay and you want them to be here, you have to understand what it is they want. It's a simple question. Go home tonight, ask your grandchildren, ask your kids, what do you hope for our city? I think the feedback that you get will astound you.
So with Jamie's additions, I don't think that there's anything that I would add to or take away from that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move to education and workforce development now. Indiana and Richmond have notoriously struggled from the brain drain. What are your goals to further engage and retain young talent in Richmond?
Thank you. So the first thing is, what are we looking for in applicants and candidates in our workforce? How do we provide that information? And how early do we need to touch those students to ensure that they're getting the right training, education to stay here? And how do we engage them in that process? As mayor, I will work with employers to start with internships. I think internships across all of our economic and business fields are important. They engage our students and they keep them here. We also need to start younger with our children, and I mentioned that. Advanced aspirational learning teaches problem solving, critical thinking, teamwork. I'm in the process of working with 2 entities right now in the City of Richmond to launch a program that does just that. It's critical that we engage, and it's critical that we foster the educational relationship.
No, Thomas.
Yeah, okay. So that's another toughie. So to engage and maintain our youth. This has also been an ongoing problem. As long as I can remember, people have went to college and they stayed wherever they went or they moved on somewhere else. A lot of people don't come back. I think that one thing we could do is possibly push our education system to do a little bit more with like the internships or the vocational, things like that, and get people involved with local businesses to where they actually see a career right off the bat. There's so many jobs you can get with just a little bit of skills where you're making as much money as a bachelor's degree. So, you know, by keeping these people right here, right now, that may be the way to go.
Internships, vocational options, these are things that are going on and happening right now in our city. Aspirational leadership training, there's no reason for the mayor to spend time reinventing the wheel. The city needs to take a leading role in breaking down the barriers to education. We have tremendous community leaders that we're partnering with right now in those initiatives. And one of the things that we're working on is to bring to life the Townsend Townhomes and Townsend Scholar House that we proposed in our regional Stellar application. That is a game changer in educational aspiration for our community. The Townsend Townhomes allows people that are going to school to have a place to live at a low cost of living while breaking down the transportation and the childcare needs. That's where we play a very vital and active role in making education attainable. We have all of the opportunities here. We have to break down the barriers for people to navigate from point A to point B, and that is what we are working on right now.
Thomas, this question will be for you. Pairing off the last 2 questions, Sammy from IU East turned in a question, said, what is your plan to keep people living in our community? Thomas, you're first.
Go to me?
Mm-hmm.
That's also a very good one. You know, there's not a whole lot you can do to make people stay here. I mean, to keep them here, there's got to be opportunity. There has to be better jobs. You know, it would be nice to have, you know, nicer people sometimes. But, you know, those are some barriers that we may not be able to break. But I don't think there's a magic answer for that either.
Here's Snow.
My role as mayor is to lead with positivity and vision and progress, because that makes people want to be in this community and that makes them want to stay in this community. I engage with our youth on a regular basis. I go talk at the schools. I talk at the Excel Center at Richmond Adult Education, and I tell them when I see them graduate, I say I'm faced with the problems of this community every day and I'm looking out at solutions. People who have taken the time to invest in their own lives. That is important. Those are the things that a mayor does to encourage people to want to stay in this community and become co-creators and make it better. So it's that community building, it's that sense of place. Those are vital, vital pieces to making people, help people believe in Richmond and make them proud to call this place home.
I believe it starts with engagement and collaboration. Look at our neighborhoods today. They're a little disconjointed, some are decaying, and we need to reach back out to those neighborhoods and engage. That includes our police officers, that includes our elected officials, and even as a mayor. It's my job to walk up to you and talk to you and say, how's your day going? Tell me what you need from me. What will make you stay here? What's your hopes for our community? we always seem to miss a step in this, and the buzzword is quality of place. Quality of place is top down. I hate to say that. We need a place of quality. Who decides what a place of quality is? It's our residents, it's our citizens, it's our business owners. And we must listen to them so that we can ensure that the right funds, the right efforts, and the right resources are moved in the proper direction so that they stay here.
Thank you. The next question we got from multiple venues, how can the community better engage the local colleges and their students in hopes of retaining them upon graduation? Dave, this will start with you.
I'm sorry, was the question the community or the city government?
How can the community and the city government as a partner?
Great. Okay. So when we're talking about the community as a whole and the city government, that is where internships do come into play. If you have a business in Richmond, please invite these students to intern in your business. We've engaged with that in my office. Over the summer, we had a student from Japan that came to us through Earlham, spent the entire summer in my office. We've had students from Seton. There are so many roles that you can play to engage with these students. I attend new student orientation. As I told you, I attend graduation. Several times when the new Earlham students have come in, I've jumped on the bus tour and given them a tour of the city because I think that's important for the mayor to jump in and do those things. So staying engaged with them, but most importantly, and this is the most challenging part for all of us, is allowing them to question with authority and challenge us to build the city that they have in their minds. That's difficult. It's challenging for us. And if we don't allow them that opportunity, and if all they encounter are closed minds and closed doors, they'll find a city where they can encounter that and where they can have those opportunities. So we always have to be open-minded. Let them question with authority. Listen to their ideas. Try to implement them and let them feel pride in their city as they grow up here and hopefully make their lives here.
That was an interesting response, but what I would go back to is, how early did you engage them? How early did you make them feel like this is home? That's the key to this. We have children right now who, I'll be honest with you, haven't slept in a bed and they're 14 years old. They don't have a pair of shoes. They go home hungry. How are we engaging kids? How are we making them feel like Richmond is their home and welcoming them? Fostering that education so that they want to get that advanced education or that secondary education or that certificate or that vocational training. We have to help remove the apathy, the 2 generations of apathy that has hit our town. Let's just be honest here. It's a tough conversation. It starts there.
So to clarify, we are talking about college, right? Okay, so the number one response is going to be internships by far. But with the amount of colleges we have here and the amount of people that come in from the outside to our colleges, I'd say that probably a second runner-up, or maybe even the most important, is embracing the people. You know, there's so many different people, so diverse from different places, and I think that if we as people from Richmond can embrace these people and show them the love and they're welcome here, that they might stay.
Jamie, this question will be for you first. An Ivy Tech student asks, how do you plan to address and combat the opioid and drug epidemic in our community?
It's a national question. It's an epidemic, obviously. Now you're going to hear some statistics later from my opponent, which are great. But the reality is we need to focus on the dealers. The dealers, we need to do the enforcement side. Now on the user side, we're not the experts. But what we need to have from the experts is the advisement, so that we can get the message out there to the public about how we're going to address this and what is necessary to move forward. We do have an issue, though, in our town. We have many resources. We have many treatment clinics. What do? They do a fantastic job for treating people, but they also bring in people from out of town with the same issues. And that expands our problems. It's a reality. We now have a needle exchange program right dead middle in a residential area. I was against it. It happened. Needles are on the ground. It's a problem. But from the enforcement side, what I'll do is I'll ask my chief of police to work with county and state law enforcement as well. I will petition lawmakers to get stricter laws and punishments for drug dealers. They're poisoning our kids, and we need that to stop.
Okay. So, I think staying the course on the actions we're already taking, from what I understand, the drug problem is actually getting better. We're slowly starting to defeat this. It's a nationwide problem, so there again, there's no magic answer. If there was, somebody else would have fixed it already. Being a Southsider and being around a lot and seeing a lot of different neighborhoods, I see questionable stuff all the time, and you can call the police and you can wear people out and go that route, but it's just a matter of staying the course, working the enforcement, working the treatment, and doing anything you can to help.
The addiction epidemic in our community hits me personally. Richmond is my home. This city is full of my family and neighbors and friends, and I take it very personal. It's something we've worked hard against every single day that I've been mayor. So when we talk about the drug problem in our community, it breaks down into two pieces. We have a supply and we have a demand. On our supply side of drugs, we have the people that bring the drugs into our community, sell them, and distribute them. On the demand side, we have our neighbors, friends, and family members that are suffering through addiction, and they are truly suffering, and they need help. And so when I look at my role as mayor, it wasn't as difficult. It took years to get our police department back to full force, but we could build a roadmap to that. So after years of work, our police department is back at full force. We are seeing, we have the statistics on my desk. In 2018, we saw double the amount of cocaine off the streets, double the amount of heroin, and 3 times the amount of meth. We saw double the closure in drug houses. We saw half the arrests of youth and double the arrests for adult narcotics. We are absolutely, positively making a huge impact in the drug problem in our community. But that's on the supply side. Police officers are not equipped to help people through the addiction recovery process. That comes from our community services and through us as a community to support them. So when we talk about that, that was why I made the Neighborhood Mini Services Grant available to strengthen our neighborhoods. And we as a community have to be supportive of those suffering and supportive of those resources so they can seek the help they need. On the supply side, we will keep attacking that, we will keep arresting offenders, and we will keep closing drug houses.
Thank you. The next question came from the audience that we pulled online. What, if any, policies will you pursue to address inequalities among minorities, including the LGBTQ community, people in our community? And this will start with Thomas.
I'm not sure what policies that I would come up with for that. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the Human Rights Commission, and that's obviously going to be a subject coming up. There again, with that, it's a matter of how we're going to pay for it. It's a great idea, but at the same time, our budget's not looking so well. Are we going to get volunteers to take these positions? That would probably be the best answer is to work with the Human Rights Commission or reestablish one.
I have talked since becoming mayor about the Human Rights Commission because having a welcoming and tolerant city that allows for its citizens to have access to an advocate is essential to our growth as a community. Now, it's taken a lot of work. Right now, I have a panel of experts that I've assembled to help guide me through the rebuilding of that commission. We have a tremendous amount of work to do. The actual ordinance is the Human Rights Ordinance. Right now, I think we could do some work to add LGBTQ status to our protected status. Also, veteran status would be important. Age, sexual identity would also be vital to add to that protected ordinance in our Human Rights Ordinance. Having a working Human Rights Commission would mean that those people in our community who feel marginalized or discriminated against because of their status in our community would then have an advocate. And I am working towards that right now. It's going to take a little more time, but it's something I'm passionate about, and I'm working with a committee right now of experts in the community that can help address the financial needs of that group, once they're up and running, the management structure and the reporting structure of that group, and what issues they're likely to face so we can be prepared for those. It has to be built in a way that is sustainable, that can continue to function after it's built, and won't be vulnerable to the change of political winds in the years to come. That's very important to me.
Yeah, I know this was an issue for Dave back in 2015, and quite frankly, I'm surprised we're talking about it because I would have thought it came before council now. I know that in 2017, on an interview, he said that, hey, I am finalizing the ordinance to present the council. That was 2017. We have in place a process and a commission through the state that does exactly what this could potentially do. What's interesting is from 2015 till now when I've ran, I hear more about animal rights than I do about human rights, which may shock the room, but that's just the case of it. And if you look back at the past of the Human Rights Commission, over 90% were dealt with landlords and tenants. So moving forward, we're all protected. We all have the same rights. We just need to be cognizant of what everybody's rights are.
Mr. Moderator, is there an option for a 60-second rebuttal on that? That's a very large topic. If you'd like to close there, it's fine. I just was asking.
We're going to move forward.
Move forward?
Fine,
thank you.
to the schedule. We're going to switch now focuses to housing. This question comes from concerned citizens through every area of the city. How will you deal with blighted houses within the community to help increase not only housing, but personal property values? Mayor Snow?
Me? Thank you. In the 90 seconds of this, I'm going to come back to that previous topic and use this time. That is not something to be taken lightly. I heard both sides of the fence there that I brought up in 17 that I was working on, and it's not done, which almost sounded in favor of it. And then I heard the state has those same resources. We do not ever expect the people who are marginalized in this community to try to afford a bus ticket to Indianapolis to get help. We are here to help them. That's our job. It's what we're being paid to do, and it's what we should always do. Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I was ready to go on that one. I'll use the rest of my time.
How will you deal with blighted houses?
I got it. Thank you so much. Blighted houses we are taking care of right now. I created a brand new code enforcement department. We are tackling that every day. Derek Hill has been a fantastic leader in that department. We are using ordinance to go out and tackle the blighted homes. We're using our Unsafe Building Commission. We just put money in that for the 2020 budget, and we're taking care of trash, debris, and unkempt lawns, so it's something that we're working on right now. Thank you.
It's interesting that, he comes back on a diversity point when if you look at his department heads are less diverse now than when he started. Let's be honest. So with that, blighted houses, obviously we're working forward to address those issues. As you look around town, what I hear from people is this: I don't see the consistency of the enforcement process. We need to work on that. Our beds need to be made prior to going out and finding people and doing things that are going to cost them money. I was not in favor of adding a new department. I voted against it because I thought it should be maintained underneath the sanitary district. I think the workers are fantastic, but we need better direction to ensure that as we move forward, we address the blight and the cleanliness issues that are in this town.
So the blight program, where we removed all the houses, took care of 200-300 houses that are now gone. We don't have to worry about. As far as the code enforcement, it's a new department. I say let's give it a chance to see if it's going to work out the bugs, and then go from there before we prejudge.
Thank you. In 2018, the community received the results of a housing study focused on our community, and there was a large gap in the housing needs. How do you plan to address those needs? Is there a plan?
I think it's Jamie. So if you look on MLS today, there are exactly 174 houses listed in the City of Richmond. There are over 10,000 houses in the City of Richmond, homes. That shows that we are at 1.7% of all houses in Richmond are currently for sale. We have a shortage. So does the nation, so does the state. What are we going to do? Well, obviously, we have turned in more to a renter community and not a home ownership community. So our houses don't turn like they should. We need to have investors come in, but here's the dilemma. Your two major developers in town have said, we're not going to develop any more land. How are we going to fix that? It's going to take the city working with the developers and potentially offering abatements, bonds, to develop new houses in our community. We also need investment from other entities, from other owners in town. But we can't penalize them for fixing up a property so that it becomes more enticing for somebody to buy. I would propose that we offer abatements for those improvements over a 3-year period, so that if somebody wants to add siding or a new roof or something, it doesn't increase the property value and they're penalized for doing that.
Me on this one? Okay. So with housing needs, I'm a contractor. I get around town all the time. I look at houses all the time. There's a lot of houses for sale in Richmond. There's also a lot of houses that could be purchased and remodeled and repurposed. I think there's quite an option for housing in Richmond. I mean, there's obviously need for improvement. If there's the question coming out, I had heard from the Realtor Association about the development issue, and my question would be to those developers: why won't you develop here? Is there a reason? And is the reason because there's not enough people here that want to buy brand new houses at your cost, or is the reason because you just don't want to develop here?
So affordable, equitable home ownership is a key ingredient to any city's success and should always feel attainable to every person in Richmond. We have in our possession data, so we can make data-driven decisions. We are active with the Eastern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. Through that 5-county group, we have a commissioned study from Purdue that has given us data about our housing gaps. We also applied for a regional stellar designation, and we're given the assistance of Ball State University, who also did a housing study. So we have that to overlay with Purdue's study. What that study showed us, just to give you some of the highlights, is that we have a shortage, as was pointed out, particularly in what is noted as our workforce housing. We have a high rental demand in that middle market as well, and then we are seeing population loss, which is not helping with the home ownership attainability. Some of the challenges that the universities pointed out to us was challenging the city to build a stronger sense of place. That was their number one. Building a sense of place will lead to a higher level of home ownership. So this is going to take data-driven decisions and the continuation to build a sense of place, to work with council, work with our developers, and invigorate the housing market, particularly in the middle of our city where it's needed most.
Thomas, this question will be for you. This question came from a concerned citizen. When looking at development in the city, homes, businesses, everything, what can you do or what do you have a plan for to bring in investment as mayor?
I would have no clue at this point. I would have to refer to the Redevelopment Commission and the EDC on that, because that's something I'm not familiar with.
Talking about bringing investment, particularly into the heart of the city through home ownership and business ownership?
Either or, both.
One of the projects we have talked about to invigorate the business ownership, particularly in our downtown, as we continue on these much needed infrastructure projects. If you drive through there today, it looks so much more inviting already for you to get out, walk around, and navigate. We want to make sure we're knocking down the barriers for coming entrepreneurs. We have the partners in place. We have the Small Business Development and the Innovation Center. We have our revolving loan fund program. And so what we've been working on now is creating a new program that can help knock down some of those barriers. We have to stop relying on entrepreneurs and would-be business owners to have enough startup capital to come in, do all the necessary historic repairs to these beautiful old buildings, and then be able to put their product to market. Whether it's food, whether it's candles, whether it's clothing. We need to use the resources that we already have in our toolkit to knock down some of those barriers so they can get into actively selling their wares to you that much quicker and easier. And that's a really big thing that we can do to create critical mass and bring more people into the heart of our city.
Simply communication. We have resources to help them. How are we giving that information to them? How are we making them aware of what's out there so that they can prosper in our city? That's the key. Once again, we go back to the simple communication. Talking, listening, engaging. If we start there, there's nothing that we can't overcome. We can invite people in, and we can produce and grow businesses in a much more positive way.
All right, we are going to move to the next topic, transportation. How do you feel about the current public transportation systems in our community, and how do you plan to address the needs surrounding the transportation that currently exists? And this one starts with Mayor Snow.
So having ample public transportation that's easy to use is definitely important to any city so that everyone can navigate and get around. We have looked deeply at our current public transport system. It is highly subsidized through federal funding. So we have to make a decision if we want to shift that federal funding into new avenues within our public transport or take money out of our budget to infuse it into the public transport system. We have had several discussions through our budget processes to do that, and we'll continue those discussions to try to add routes, add evening hours. We just added a new bus driver in the 2020 budget, so we're taking baby steps right now to make it a more robust system. But our public transport is just one piece of the transportation. You can see now, as you navigate through the heart of our city, that we are adding safety features so that families and visitors can more safely navigate through our downtown. That's the project we're seeing right now, and it's already having a very positive impact. I already have several parents come to me and say, this is great. I can park my car once and I can safely navigate my kids around downtown and into Elstro because of these wonderful protected paths. This is fantastic. So that's another piece of making sure that our citizens and our visitors can navigate our city, and we'll keep working on the public transportation piece through our budget.
We are installing infrastructure that is made for a compact city. What is a compact city? That's high density traffic. That's not Richmond. We need to focus more on our sidewalks, away from the large bike paths. I understand connectivity. We've wasted money. We have money that should have went in other directions. Obviously, we have our bus system, which has been fantastic. Terry Quinter does a fantastic job with transportation. We have to also make sure that our taxi cab service is regulated. We also need to understand that we need to regulate our Uber and Lyft drivers as well. We need to go back to what we really are and quit trying to be something that we're not. And that is the key.
So I think with connectivity, we're doing pretty good there. We have multiple highways that run right through Richmond. Any different direction, you can go for a nice ride. As far as public transportation, I have heard that, the hours would be nice to have, a little bit longer hours on Sunday and things like that. But from what I can see, when I'm out and about and I pass the city buses, they're super unutilized. There's normally only one or two people in almost every bus that I pass. There's probably a chance they get used more than that, and I'm just not seeing it. But for the most part, I think they're underutilized, and maybe we ought to downsize our the size of the large buses.
Jamie, you'll begin with this question. This came across different school students, not only high school, but also college, and it was actually a consensus on this question. How are you going to continue to improve roads and the infrastructure overall in the city over the next 4 years?
Once again, we get back to the needs over wants. Public safety, essential services, and a place of quality are the top three. We will work to focus on that, and that's how we will improve them moving forward.
Thomas.
Okay, so exact answer on that as far as the roads and infrastructure. And so we're limited on our budget. There's no doubt that we're not going to be able to address everything, the police and the fire and the sanitation department, that takes priority. But we've kind of exhausted the TIF funds a lot on road projects, so I don't know how much that's going to be feasible to tap into that later as things come. So I'd say over the next few years, we're going to have a bumpy road.
Infrastructure is a very robust conversation. It includes our roads, our sidewalks, our sewers. It includes our bridges. Infrastructure is a big word. Clearly, we've been doing work to repair our roads. I don't have to tell you that. You've told me how sick of it you are. I'm aware. But it needed to be done. And we're thrilled that the state infused $30 million in our city in 27 through their project and coming through. We have more road work slated still for this year that will start up probably in late November. There are roads in our city that need to be fixed, and we always have to put a focus on motor vehicle highway fund to get those fixed. And the state has opened up community crossings dollars so we can double that fund to fix our roads. We've used that to the tune of about $2.5 million. While we're doing that, you've seen major sewer work in our city. We have gone through a major sewer separation project. You may remember a handful of years ago, not too long ago, every time it would rain, you turn on the radio and hear there's a combined sewer overflow alert. stay out of the East Fork of the Whitewater River. You don't hear that anymore because we've made millions and millions of dollars in investment in a sewer separation, so we don't have combined sewer overflows that every time it rains flood sewage into the river. We did that in conjunction with the EPA. We're working right now with NDOT and the county on the US 27 project that'll replace the bridge in a few years. It's a very big discussion, and we have to fix the roads. It's our responsibility. So you'll see, as mayor, me continuing to invest to fix our streets, our roads, our sidewalks, and working with the county on the bridge projects and our sewer projects.
So we're going to be transitioning to questions that we have received online. First question is, we continue to see politics become even more partisan and candidates choosing their party over their constituents. If elected, how will you work with all parties and work for your constituents instead of just the party alone? Thomas, you'll be first.
I don't think I'm going to have a problem with that. Thank you.
Mayor Smith.
Yeah, that's,
So I will tell you, working as your mayor, it is essential. The political party lines play a big role leading up to Election Day, but once everybody steps out of the poll and you take the job, it goes away. You have to do what's best for the city, and you have to work with the local leaders. The best example of that, I mean, I can talk the talk, but it's more important to show you how I've walked it. The best example of that is our hospital project. There is absolutely no way that hospital would have come down without the partnership and the bipartisan spirit of all of us at the table. That was a Herculean feat when you think about it. We had 9 city council members of different political backgrounds, 7 county council members of different political backgrounds, and 3 county commissioners. That is 19 elected officials, 19 agendas, 19 platforms that all sat down at a table and worked together to get one project done. That's bipartisan leadership. That's the walk that I've walked as your mayor, and that's what I'll continue to do over my next 4 years.
so obviously the national debate continues, and it's trickled down into local discussions. I said it before, I'm an open door. I want that collaboration. I want to know what's going on in your community. I want to help you. I want you to give me your goals and your visions, and then it's time for government to come back to you and tell you what we can and can't do. The mayor should sign up for what can be done, and the city council should sign up for what should be done. It's that simple. If you can't engage and you can't listen, we will never go any further than where we are today.
The next question is, how can the administration address poverty and still maintain a balanced budget? Dave, this will start with you.
So when we look at poverty in our community, it is something that affects so many of us in so many different ways. And we have to make sure that we're building a community that provides hope and aspiration to its citizens. There has to be a want and a desire and a feeling that there is something attainable in the community. Also addressing poverty is working with the workforce resources that are available in our community and our educational resources. We have those resources here. A little while back, I even made a video. When I would go out and talk to community members, I would say, if you're struggling, if you're unemployed or underemployed, are you aware of the resources that are available? And they would often say, I didn't know that I could go to the Excel Center and get a Core 40 degree, and they provided childcare and transportation. I didn't know that Richmond Adult Education provided English as a second language for free, and they provided childcare and transportation. The resources that are available for this don't often have robust marketing budgets. So I took that initiative. I made a video. I brought the leaders from each of those organizations forward to let them have that moment with the community. That video shot up to over 30,000 views in just a few weeks. Our community is utilizing the resources at hand, but as mayor, it's important that I'm always at the table with Eastern Indiana Works. And we have a whole list of them right here, as a matter of fact. Eastern Indiana Works, the Next Level Jobs program through Governor Holcomb's office, the grants that are made available through the EDC for workforce development. We're currently a partner on all those initiatives, and we'll continue to do that to invigorate workforce resources so people can navigate into gainful employment.
Thank you. Once again, if we don't engage early enough, we will fall behind. It's that simple. We don't have the real meaningful conversations at an early enough age so that kids and our youth and our future understand that there are other options. We let them get too far down the line, and then what happens? Apathy, more poverty, generational poverty. It starts young. That's where the real turn is going to be made.
So the city addressing poverty, I guess it really comes down to what level of poverty you're actually talking about, because I'm sure there's multiple levels there. But with our current budget and probably what our future budgets, I really don't see how the city's going to address that at all. Now, possibly we can put out the information to where the churches and the organizations that provide help to people. That's one thing we can do. But as far as squeezing money out of the budget to do that, I don't know how that's going to happen.
Jamie, you'll be first on this one. How do we fix the decay of McBride Field and Roosevelt Hill?
Partnerships. Obviously, there are philanthropy in this town, or there's also an opportunity to get a grant or financial assistance because it's a national historical site. It's that simple. It is a resource drain for us, and it shouldn't be. We've let it decay far too many years and for far too long. We need a partner. It's too much of a burden for Richmond, the city of Richmond, to handle at this point.
So all I heard was decaying.
McBride.
How do you fix the decay of McBride Field, Roosevelt Hill?
That's a good question. Hopefully grants. I mean, that's, clearly the city doesn't have the budget for that. We just took a bond out to support our Parks Department, so clearly they don't have any money. And what money they took out pretty much is already allotted. The bond was $800,000. The ideal spending money is, $1 million, just over $1 million. So, oh wow, yeah. So yeah, there's no money there. So, hopefully grants. That's a good question.
So we've addressed this issue within our thriving Parks Department. We have tremendous leadership and workforce in our current Parks Department, and they're doing a fantastic job. And what we opened up was a donation account for McBride so that people are able to donate. We also rely heavily on our user fees for McBride for those that are in the stadium and using it. So we're using all of that to continue to invest in our beloved stadium and try to keep it a wonderful historic attribute that it is to our community. But you know what? We have such a hard-working, visionary Parks Department that is working so hard for you every day. I don't like hearing that very bleak outlook on what is otherwise a community treasure. We have worked very hard on that stadium, and we'll continue to do so to keep it viable and keep it usable for all the users that are in there.
We received a question from a victim of home improvement fraud, and she asked, can you explain how the city can improve their current processes and procedures to prevent this from becoming a more widespread problem? Thomas, this will start with you.
Okay, so I didn't know there was policy or procedures from the city. I'm a contractor, and I draw permits from time to time when I work within the city when it's required, but I didn't know the city had any policies on anything like that. I assume that when you ran into a situation like that, you hired a lawyer or you went and filed a lawsuit in the small claims court.
Well, obviously, being an advocate for citizens who feel as though they're being marginalized is important. That's one of the reasons I'm working on the Human Rights Commission. That would be an avenue that would be very usable for the Human Rights Commission, so we'd have a place to refer that person that felt as though they were being bullied by someone in the community. But we also want to be able to turn these over to our police department, so our police can work on them now, and our Human Rights Commission will be able to address issues like this in the future.
It's a legal issue. It's a legal issue. It's a contract between a customer and a supplier.
Mayor Snow. What is each candidate's opinion in incorporating alternative fuel sources for private and public transportation?
Alternative fuel sources are the future of all cities across America, and we've already been working on that. We were part of a grant submittal to the Department of Energy where we applied for multiple recharging stations throughout the city and a fully electric utility vehicle for our street department. Now, unfortunately, we were not successful in attaining that particular grant, but it was just one in a string that we can continue to apply for. And in our planning department, we have someone right now that's working in our GIS that's finding the best positions for electric charging stations. I think our first jump out of the gate would be Elstro Plaza. It's a great place for a recharging station for an electric vehicle, as is our very far east side right off of I-70. So it's discussions that we're having right now. Our alternative fueling, broadband, and sustainability have to stay at the forefront of all of our conversations as we move forward, because that's the future of all cities.
As a member of the board of directors of RP&L, you guys have recently seen the solar parks that have went up. That's energy. That's a different type of energy that's new to Richmond. Also, too, as you move forward into the future of automobiles, electrification is going to be a huge thing. Charging stations are going to pop up like we talked about. The future is electrified vehicles. I've worked in the industry. It's going to be the way forward. It's probably another generation away when you see that happening actually within our community and our nation on a large scale, but it's coming. So when do we need to add that infrastructure? Is it today? I don't know that. We'll have to look at the timeline and the chart out as to when the volume is going to pick up, and I think that electrification stations need to be planned accordingly.
So with alternative fuels, I'm guessing they're talking about soon and not way on down the road, but back to the budget. Alternative fuels and anything that's got anything to do with it, expensive. So it's probably not something that's feasible at this point. Now, if there's grants, if there's other money out there that can be had to do that stuff, it'd be worth looking at. It's the right thing to do. At the same time, we really got to watch our spending.
All right, the next question. What is your favorite way to spend time in our community? Jamie?
Engaging youth, I'll be honest with you. I'm a volunteer coach. I'm a mentor. I actually will take the time to stop in and talk to my kids that I worked with many, many years ago. And it's fun to see them. I know one recently, I don't know if you guys know Quentin Hunter. He graduated from college and now he's doing really well in realty in Dayton. And he sent me a message that said, please come see me when you're in town. So what I like to do is interface with our youth and try to have an impact on their life.
Thomas?
So aside from work, which is what I just love, probably my favorite thing in the community would be the Middle Fork Reservoir.
Oh man, I enjoy running when I have the opportunity. I also do play music when I have that opportunity. Those are few and far between as well. My favorite times have always been through my whole life just at community festivals around Richmond. I grew up on South 6th Street, right across from St. Andrews. And so walking downtown for community events and festivals, that's my childhood. And that's what I still enjoy to this day. So anytime there's a community event going on or a community festival, that's where you'll find me. That's where I enjoy being, talking to people and seeing everyone gathering and enjoying our city.
This will move us to our final question before you do have 3 minutes for closing statements. Thomas, we'll start with you. What is the greatest asset that our community of Richmond has?
Our history, hands down.
Our greatest asset are our people. Our history is great. Our architecture is beautiful. Our infrastructure is growing. We're working on a 10-year master plan right now. You're engaging with that plan, but it all comes down to the people. Cities in and of themselves are incapable of showing any sign of life or emotion. They are only capable of reflecting what's given to them by the community. That's why I love this city so much. When you all come together and make festivals and events and gather, you create this sort of special color that's the Richmond color. And it's just what makes this place feel like home. It's always going to be you. You're what makes Richmond amazing every day.
It's the people. I mean, that's the obvious answer. But it starts in how do we develop that community? How do we move for the greater good? Once again, it starts with communication. It starts with understanding what neighborhoods need and what neighborhoods want. And the big picture and putting that together for Richmond, it's people.
All right, we will move to closing statements. Each candidate has 3 minutes for a closing statement, and we will start with Mr. Owens again.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So I probably won't take 3 minutes on this, so bear with me here. So with so many candidates running for office in Richmond, I hope everybody takes the time to learn about each candidate, all the other candidates, and learn a little bit more about what their campaign is and what they're looking to do for us. So everyone here that can vote will have a choice for mayor, city clerk, 3 council at large, and 1 council district representative. No matter who wins these elections, our work's cut out for us. There's no doubt about that. So if we can all come together for the greater good of Richmond, the possibilities are endless. Richmond has the diversity, the history, and the location to be the hub of the Midwest again. Although national politics have created a division between so many people, let's set that aside and learn to love one another again, even if we don't agree on all issues. I'd like to challenge everybody today to start this process. So before you leave, if you're sitting next to somebody you don't know, introduce yourself and talk a little. If you've never met your next door neighbor, do so. If you pass somebody while you're out, say hello, wave, or simply smile. All these actions require little effort and will shine favorably upon who we are. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank Richmond High School for hosting this debate. I'd like to thank the HYPE organization, Roxy and Mark, for all the hard work coordinating this special event, and I hope in the future we see this kind of participation. Thank you.
Richmond has always been my home, and it will always be my home. It's a place I'm so proud to live. And this election is very important. And at the end of this election, I may be on this side with you, and our next mayor will be my mayor, someone that I need to get behind. So as I listen to the words that are spoken today, I hear caution in words about 2 generations of apathy in our community. The issues that we face as a city aren't your fault. It's not the job of the mayor to point the finger at you and say, well, 2 generations of apathy have led us here. I hear about a lack of need for the Human Rights Commission, and I hear no code enforcement was necessary. And then most of all, I hear we need to go back to who we are. Why in the world would we ever go backwards? What is the point? We want to move forward. It is Richmond's time to shine. It's been Richmond's time for a long time. And I am so excited to be at the helm and push us forward. I'm asked so often by community members, what can I do to make Richmond better? What's my role? Being here, being informed, staying engaged, going to vote, taking your family and friends and neighbors to vote, that's certainly being on the right track. I thank you so much for the opportunity that you've given me to serve as your mayor, and you've been so supportive of me. You've entrusted in me a huge job, and I've tackled it every day with passion and vigor. I poured my heart and soul into it. Today I stand before you asking you to continue that support. We have a lot more work to do. But if we continue to believe in our city, if we truly believe in Richmond, it won't just rise, it'll rise beyond our expectations, and we'll keep moving it forward together. We have come this far, Richmond. Let's keep going forward. Thank you.
I would like to thank HYPE once again and Richmond Community Schools for sponsoring this event. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to come out and listen to what we have to say. Absolutely, there are more races in this town for elected positions than just the mayor. It's important that everybody take the time to do your due diligence to understand the candidates. With that said, I want to leave you with this. How do you feel when you drive through our city? How do you feel when you look out the windows of your car? How do you feel when you meet somebody for the first time and they tell you, and you tell them you're from Richmond, Indiana? How does that make you feel? These are the questions you really need to get to in comparison to where we're supposedly going. That's the trick here. Are you happy with the direction we're headed in? If you are not, it's important that your voice be heard and you speak out and say, I'm not happy with the way we're going and I'm going to cast my vote in a different direction. Or I'm going to take another candidate who has a different pathway to bringing us to where we need to be. I appreciate your time once again tonight, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. I want to thank all of the candidates for being here. Can we give them another round of applause for participating? Before we wrap up tonight, there are a few people I would like to thank again. First of all, Richmond Community Schools, Dr. Terrell, thank you for giving us the space. We really appreciate it. I also would like to recognize the Barnett Helm for donating the flowers tonight, and she will be donating these out to community members later this week. I also want to thank all of the HYPE members who participated, everyone who jumped online and tweeted throughout the night, and all of you for being here and participating in our government. As you will notice on your way out, there is a HYPE table. You can check your voter status there. You can also register to vote. If you do either one of those, we are going to do a drawing for 2 sets of tickets to the 7 p.m. improv show that happens on October 4th. So we hope to see you there, checking your status at the end of the night. I also want to thank, once again, Mark and Amanda. They put all of this together. Their hard work needs big recognition, so please give them a round of applause. Thank you for being here and have a wonderful evening.
Oh, absolutely.